I probably was depressed, especially after my mom died.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just so young that I didn't define it.
Yeah, you didn't.
I didn't think, man, I'm depressed, or I didn't have anybody else to compare myself to or look at and be
and
like.
You weren't like thinking about. You were lingering on that because you're a kid, so kids are free-minded, whatnot.
But I remember my dad, and I remember the situation. I remember my dad coming home. I lived with my grandparents. They had a big old gate rolling. He was driving a white Volvo back in the day. But I remember he reminded me of it when I got older. He said, "Man, I remember coming home and you finding you like trying to hang yourself." He didn't really know what I was doing. I really didn't know. I don't know if I would have done, but I remember like throwing the rope around the branch and like I don't know what was going through my head. I can't tell you, bro. I must have been 10 years old, you know. And then I mean, obviously, I feel like I felt times where I've sad and that thought that has gone through my head, like, man, the world would probably be better off. I'm sure everybody at some point in their life says that to themselves, like, man, the world would just be better off without you, bro.
Yeah. Or who's gonna miss you?
But I don't think I've ever gotten to the point where I've seriously like started to strategize in my head about killing myself. I've never gone that far. I wouldn't say I've ever gone that far. But yeah, I guess that would be my answer to that question.
For me, it'd be like if I had to identify through my life how many times, like a number, I would say 3. And it always goes back to financial situation. So like for what I do, like as a job, I work with, it's called ORR, and it's basically working with those kids that get detained at the border, and these kids get sent to a shelter. Okay, so I'm basically a social worker, and I have my files and I have my caseload and I work the cases. But a lot of the times these shelters close. You know, it depends on funding. It depends. It's government funded. So they close and I lose my job. And I don't like not working. It bothers me a lot. Because I feel like as a man, I feel like that, and I feel like the eye of people, like, you know, as a man, you need to be providing for your family, you know? And I don't like not providing for my family. That's happened to me a couple times. And I feel like I can't go. Like, there's been times where I'll tell Katerina, like, when I didn't have a job, like, I didn't want to go see her family. Like, she has family up in Robstown, Texas. And I didn't want to go see her family because I'm like, you know, like, what do you do when you get somewhere? You know, like, hey, how you been? You know, how's work? Like, it's the first thing you touch on, you know what I'm saying? And I'd be like, oh, dude, like, what am I going to say? Like, you know, I just knowing the fact that I was going to go and they were going to ask me that, I'm like, I don't want to go. So then that's when, you know, it first started for me. I didn't, like, when I was younger, my sister Giselle, she would always tell me, like, oh, man, like, I have anxiety, I have depression. And I'd be like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, that's not real. Like, what are you talking about? That's not real. There's no way you're telling yourself, like, you're sad, you have anxiety. And then it finally hit me because I finally understood what she meant, because I went through that. And then later on, it became worse where, like, I did have suicidal thoughts. And that's happened to me twice in my life. And that was going to be the next question for you. But you kind of already answered it. Like, when you were a kid, you know, you would be doing things, but you were a kid. But I actually would, like, I would dwell on it. I would think about it. Like, I would think of, like, what are different ways I could do it? What are different ways I could end my life? Yeah. And, like, I haven't talked about this with anybody except my wife and my cousin PJ. He for his birthday, they were doing, like, write a letter to him. And I basically wrote, like, hey, like, I give thanks for you always being there. And I opened up, like, about my suicidal ideation. But yeah, like, I would think, like, I was like, oh, I'm gonna drive to the island and jump off the bridge. I would think that. Yeah. I would think like, oh, I'm gonna wait until everybody leaves from the house and I'm gonna do something to myself. And the last thought that I remember was I was driving to the gym. I was driving to Planet Fitness in Harlingen, and I was like, now I'm just gonna go swerve, and that's it. So, yeah, and like, I wanna thank you, and I wanna thank you, my wife, my nana, Johnny, Lori, my father and my mother-in-law, for, like, reaching out. Because I know you've reached out to me several times, but I was in that space where, like, I don't want to be bothered. And I feel like people who are depressed, people who have anxiety, who have suicidal ideation, they don't want to be bothered. but it's a good thing to bother that person.
Yeah.
You know, because you're letting that person know, like, hey, I'm here. You know, anything you need, I'm here.
Yeah.
But at that time, that person doesn't want that.
And it's kind of like that, deep down, it's a combatant against when you get to that place where, like, man, I'm going to leave and nobody was going to care. And then you remember all those texts you got.
Yeah, man.
And you're like, yeah, well, I kind of know they are going to care.
Yeah, yeah. And, like, one of the main reasons why I didn't commit suicide or, like, keep thinking those thoughts is because of Jesus, you know?
Yeah.
Like, how are you going to end your life if he's the one who gave you that life, you know? It would be Jesus. This was my list. I had a list and everything. It'd be like the reason why wouldn't I commit suicide? Why am I not gonna do this? Is because of Jesus. Then my wife. I wouldn't want my wife to raise her children on her own. You know, my mom raised me and my sister by herself, and I wouldn't want that to happen to her. And then I wouldn't want my children not to have a father.
Mm-hmm.
And I was raised without a father.